Thank you, John. Welcome, everybody.
Thanks, John.
I guess I'll start and then ask others to introduce themselves, I guess. I'm Jill Pippin, Dean for Extended Learning, and today we're going to talk about the Integrative Professional Studies BA and BS program that is under development. And I would ask the other folks on the core group to introduce themselves. Lisa, would you like to go first?
Sure. I'm Lisa Glidden. I'm in the political science department, and I'm the director of IPAC, which is where this major will be housed, knock wood.
I'm Sandy Barganier. I'm in the Department of Health Promotion and Wellness, and I was a co-chair with Jill Pippin for about a year and a half until I went on sabbatical last fall. Then Lisa stepped in, but I'm on sort of the core 5 folks doing a lot of the development of this new degree program.
Julie, you're muted. I think you're.
I'm Julie Pritzak. She doesn't know how to use her unmute button. I am the Dean of the School of Communication, Media, and the Arts, and I just had an interest in this degree.
And I'm Greg Ketchum, Assistant Dean of Extended Learning.
So today we're going to tell you a little bit about the why and the what, we're very open to hear your feedback and answer any questions you might have about it. So I'm going to share my screen, and if everything works well, you're going to see our proposal, or our slideshow, excuse me. There we go. All right. So today, pardon me, because I'm still trying to move around all my Zoom stuff here. There we are. So today we're going to talk about the program, and really first we're going to talk about why. So the number of traditional residential undergraduate students in New York institutions is declining due to demographic shifts and the decrease in the number of high school graduates statewide. 6.9 million New Yorkers have at least a high school education, and 3.3 million have an associate degree or some other college, but no baccalaureate degree. So at the same time, many professionals are finding that they need to take new courses, obtain new certificates, and learn new skills to stay current and get ahead or change their careers. And so out of some research that we've been able to look at, very pointed research, you can see here that in our region, we have a number of folks who fit this definition. So 29% in Onondaga and Oswego counties from a regional standpoint. Also a stat that continues to kind of float out there, usually in terms of the SUNY Online initiative, is somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 45,000 students are choosing to take online programs from colleges outside of New York. And most specifically, in 2008, over a quarter of both first-time students and non-first-time students who enrolled at SUNY Oswego enrolled at a different institution within 8 years. And so we're looking at a demand component here that helped spur us into action. So this originated with some conversations at multiple levels in multiple time frames, actually. So it's kind of a nice or almost organic component to this. So in 2014, I know that the chair of the Comm Studies Department and I at that time had discussions about the potential of having some sort of completion degree. I think it even started before I was here. I know when the provost, Scott Furlong, came on board, he was very interested, and we talked about it quite a bit at President's Council and Dean's Council. And then in the spring of 18, the online learning strategic plan efforts really started. And one of 2 analyses that SUNY Oswego had done for that effort was a feasibility plan or analysis on the idea of creating an interdisciplinary studies kind of completion degree. So we got a lot of specific data. about it, as well as potential market and potential enrollment projections. But the online learning strategic plan needed to be finished. That was finished and it was adopted. And then we had a campus-wide exploratory meeting where we invited a number of folks from all different departments to come and talk about the potential of this type of degree in October of 2019, which resulted in the list of what you see here, this cross-campus committee of, there were a number of people that met November 2019 through spring of 2020, even with the disruption of the pandemic, we did actually move through pretty well. And Sandy Barganier was co-chair during that time, and so was very good at trying to keep us on task and continuing to advance the conversation. And then over the summer and really starting this fall, Sandy was on sabbatical, and so Dr. Lisa Glidden was willing to step in and co-chair and kind of take the reins on this effort. And so this small tactical group of 5 that just introduced ourselves really started advancing efforts that were built off of the conversations that the cross-campus committee had about what this degree program could look like. So what it looks like is this. At this point, what we'd like to see is a Bachelor of Arts or a Bachelor of Science in Integrative Professional Studies. That's the name that we think best represents what this program is. Our aims in developing the program was that it offered flexibility and customizability, because adult students, they certainly have been inquiring about a general degree option for completion purposes, and many of them have earned college credit or would like to apply it toward a degree. These adult students are often working full-time, they're financially independent or have dependents of their own or other family obligations, play multiple roles, and look for a degree or certificate program that provides that flexibility in time and location, as well as easy access to student services. And so they want to also optimize their transfer credit already earned and or apply prior learning assessment. And they want that clear pathway toward their goal tied directly to an employment outcome. So what we did also is we looked a lot and researched about the field of future of work to understand what kind of skills would individuals need for positions that would require such a degree. We also talked about making sure that courses would meet the general education and diversity goals of SUNY Oswego. And we didn't want to limit it to a completion degree, whereas that is our audience. We want to be able to take all comers that have this need, this specific need. And we're going to pursue it both as an online degree, but also allow classes to be taken in person at Syracuse or in Oswego. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa Glidden to talk curriculum.
Great. So we decided we wanted this to be, and this started out as an interdisciplinary sort of model program. So we went through to try to figure out what are the basic courses that students are going to need for this. And as we started looking through our curriculum, it turned out that we really only needed to create 2 new courses to be able to offer this. One is basically the sort of a foundations course, and the other is a capstone. And then the other courses that we have listed here are prerequisites for a lot of other courses on campus, so that it would sort of, once students did these courses, they would be able to move on to the courses in the rest of the degree, which we'll show you in just a moment. So we have the computer and information literacy. As probably everybody knows, there's also a waiver exam for that. The sort of intro to business organization course, and then either Com 210 or Com 211, which are intro sort of public speaking and communication courses. So these 15 credits are the core. And then you can go on to the next slide, Jill. And then the rest of the major is divided up into different areas. So you can see the areas listed on the left side of the slide there. We do want students to have depth. So we want to make sure that of the 27 credit hours that are in the electives, at least 12 of those credits or 4 courses come from within one of those areas. And then we are trying to make this as Jill mentioned, like customizable and flexible as possible. So students can choose the rest of the courses from the other 4 areas. We want to make sure that there's additional depth by requiring 300 or upper, 300 level credits or upper division courses. And then it could be possible that there are other, a student may have a particular interest in an area that doesn't like officially fit for here. And so we would be able to we'll set these up as courses under advisement, which some of you may be familiar with from either your own majors, if you have a multidisciplinary plan, or if you're in an interdisciplinary major, like there's a lot of under advisement stuff because new courses pop up all the time. And so for these, we are including the option of an internship under each of the electives. And then, we anticipate that there'll be new courses all the time. We also have a note on the bottom there about the micro credentials. So some of you may be familiar with the, micro credentials were approved by FA, I think last year. And they are, the idea is that if someone does one of the micro credentials, for example, in communication or digital skills, we know that the one that Julie is working on kind of fits pretty well into those areas. They would be able to, like, that would kind of be their concentration. So they would be already a good step into completing this major. Go ahead to the next one. So I'm going to just very briefly go through the learning outcomes of the major. And the reason why we're doing this is because we're hoping that the people who are here today might recognize something that is in your courses, and then it would kind of flag for you that, oh, maybe this course would fit well in this program. I should probably back up and say we did this presentation to department chairs at the joint chairs meeting that took place at the end of last semester. And we've gotten some pretty good feedback from several departments already about what courses they think would fit. For the first learning outcome, it's being able to leverage digital platforms to manage work, find work, market yourself, and work remotely. And I'm not going to go through the evidence and criteria, but you can see some of the indicators we'll use when we do assessment to make sure that we're meeting that learning outcome. So there are a lot of different kinds of tools, and a lot of this will actually come probably from the CSC 101 course, but also some other courses in, if, for example, you're teaching, like Ben, I see you're here, like if in like the CTE courses, they're learning how to do certain kinds of project management software, that might be a good course that can also count for this program. You can go ahead to the next one. Investigate or analyze complex networks of social structures and systems. This is a really wordy one, we'll probably have to work down. Integral to individual and group identity formation and its role in the creation and perpetuation of a power dynamic, privilege, and oppression. This, as you can see, probably looks pretty familiar because it is the proposed Gen Ed, or I guess is now the Gen Ed diversity outcome. The only thing that differs from our definition with the one that the Gen Ed that the FAA passed is we took off in the US because we know that the future of work is global, and you can actually meet these very easily looking in other countries as well. So we have the criteria that we'll use to kind of measure that as well. Next one, please. Looking at kind of understanding your place, how you are in the workplace. So recognizing and applying rights, responsibilities, and ethics associated with being part of communities, cultures, and organizations. Next one. being able to analyze and interpret data. So if you have a course, for example, that is part of your, the way computer and information literacy has been integrated into your major, if you have it integrated, that course is probably would be a good fit for this as well. And we'll also be doing this within the introduction and the foundations and the capstone course in the major. And then being able to communicate effectively. So, and it's not just public speaking, but it's also being able to, work in groups and manage conflict, and to be able to kind of work in a team.
Can I just jump in just a sec? Just to remind everybody that if you're not on mute, if you wouldn't mind muting yourself so that any background noise doesn't distract from the presentation, that would be helpful. Thank you.
And then the sixth one is about leadership. And this is leadership, not even, this is kind of a broadly constructed leadership. So not only that you would be maybe going in kind of a managerial position, but also this idea that's, I don't know, pretty popular right now in the corporate self-help stuff, that we're all leaders and we can all like learn to manage ourselves. So it's that kind of leadership skills. And so, and we've got several courses on campus that we think meet this as well. You can go ahead. So the two new courses that we are creating are going to give, one will give an introduction to the major and to not only look at the future of work, but also try to be able to understand why the future of work is what it is. And really, hopefully setting the students up for a kind of even treating their own degree as a project, so that by the time they get to their capstone, so it possibly could be a thesis option, but a lot of our capstones have sort of a digital portfolio where they can showcase their skills. And so in the introduction course, which will be offered every semester, we'll set the students up to be able to know what to do to draw and to be able to make their portfolio by the time they get to the capstone. And it's also set up that you don't have to take, so like the 320 course is not a prerequisite for anything else. So a student can come in and start in even their electives and then take the intro course if necessary. You can go ahead. So sort of the nuts and bolts of where we are from here. As we mentioned, we did the presentation at the chairs meeting, and we're hearing from departments about what courses would fit. We're just waiting on priorities and planning for their approval to send out our letter of intent to SUNY. And so for those of you who are unfamiliar, when we pass new programs on our campus, they also need to be approved by SUNY, and it's a two-step process. The first step is you send a letter of intent out to SUNY system, and they share it with other SUNYs who basically have the right to say like, nope, that's a little too close to a program we have, etc. So we have letters of intent ready for both a BA and a BS version of this. The BS one is a little bit more credits. Actually, what you saw was the BS version. The BA has 36 credits. We intend to offer this. We think that there are pathways that students can do this online, but also they could take courses at Syracuse and Oswego. As I mentioned earlier, we would house it under IPAC. There will be a faculty advisory board, which is the way most of our interdisciplinary programs like global studies and gender and women's studies are set up. And extended learning is going to take kind of point on advising and on recruiting students. As you can imagine, it's a pretty advisement heavy program. And then it'll also, although it's going to be in IPAC, we'll have, for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, there are a few different programs that are in IPAC, and each of those programs have a director. So like I'm the director of global studies, Joe is the director of gender and women's studies, and they're sort of housed in IPAC, and we have some limited resources in IPAC that we can offer to support the interdisciplinary programs. So we do expect that a lot of students who are coming to this major are going to have are going to be coming in with transfer credits. And there are other kinds of prior learning assessments that we already are part of, that students can also apply to this. And so students, if they've been at a 4-year college, they can actually transfer in up to 90 credits at SUNY, and then they need to do 30 credits in residence. And as probably most of you know, at least half the credits in their major have to be done here as well. So we think it's possible for students to come in and finish this in a timely manner if they're coming from someplace else. Go ahead. I think, yeah, that's pretty much, I've said all of these things. The last thing I'll say is that there is a QR code at the bottom, and this is what was shared with the department chairs. If you know of a course, you can, click on that or put your phone to that, or I don't know that you can click on the link, but we would be happy to share this out, I think, with people who are in the meeting. If you would like to fill out the Google form, or let your chair know that you think that, whatever courses you think might fit well with this, oh, that's a good idea. I think, Jill, you're gonna have to put the link in the chat, Jill just said, which is
Oops, I have to get, hold on.
okay.
I will definitely do that.
Yeah. And you can feel free, if you wouldn't mind, by February 1st, so that we can get the, right now for the letter of intent, we have a sort of a skeletal model of the program that's been built out, but we need to be able to fill in real courses. Once we hear back from SUNY that our intention to move forward with this is okay, we'll go through our regular campus governance processes, where we'll have to get official letters from each department, and then it'll go through our campus governance procedures and go on to system for approval, which hopefully will happen this semester so that we can have this on the books for fall. That's all I have.
Yeah, and that is pretty much our entire presentation. We're happy to expand on anything, take questions, discuss further about some of the research we did in order to get to this point. So now we open it up to all of you.
Go ahead, Alana.
I'm assuming that you're going to be meeting as a committee to discuss when you start adding new courses, since this goes through SUNY, but it is implemented at Oswego, right? Was that my understanding of the structure?
So the way that when we add new courses, the way that we currently do this, and I can speak for global studies. So I actually have a whole package of changes that are going through for global studies, and that basically comes through the advisory board. And then we have to, once again, when that doesn't have to go to SUNY, that just stays right here on our campus. But when we add new courses, it goes through the same governance process. So priorities and planning has to make sure that the major is still doable and figure out let us know if they're concerned that there's too much of a resource implication. And APC makes sure that it's sort of doable, for a student to complete it. So
And
yeah,
Alana,
anyway, Alana, I think your CRM course might be a good fit. Because it's so database focused, but I know that's, you can figure out your department first, and then we'll see if there's room for additional seats.
Well, I was working on a micro-credential for archaeological database management that has national, at least national interest because of the continuing credit issue for professional certification in archaeology. And that might be a good course to slide into this as well, since I think it'd be really useful. So, but yeah, I have other courses in Anthro that I'm going to talk to them about too. So,
No,
thanks.
Alana, I think one of the, and we do know about your micro credential. I think Jill shared that with us. I think one of our goals is right now in talking with all the chairs and getting department buy-in is to really get as many courses as possible that fit in sort of those different categories. And it doesn't mean they're always going to be offered, but they're there. And so students can have a choice. So we don't always have to be up, if we can cast the net wide right now and get buy-in from different departments that, yes, you have a course that fits these performance outcomes. And yes, it's most likely going to be taught online or is online and or face-to-face. That would be great now as we start this. Thank you.
Hi, Joe.
Hi. Yeah, so on that note, to what extent how often do the courses need to be offered online to really be feasible to be a part of it? Like regular, every semester or?
Well, I think at this
Once a
point, the core courses are the ones that we really want to make sure are offered on a very regular basis and have seats. Other than that, there's such flexibility in the program that I think that we don't really have a prescriptive schedule consideration yet. So I don't know that we've gotten there. Maybe once a year.
I would think once a year, at least once every 2 years, especially people transferring in, maybe here 3 semesters. If you really value your course and think it's really something we want students to have, I would try to get it online if you can and offer it, once every 3 semesters or something to that effect.
But to go to this point that Sandy made before, although that like your particular course may not be offered in a semester, as long as we have other courses that could be offered, so I think once every 2 years is what a lot of the, I feel like what a lot of the electives end up getting offered on, in especially like the, well, I'm thinking like for gender and women's studies, like the feminist theory requirement, right? Because there's like one course, but it comes from 3 different departments. So there might be an option for theory, but it could be that you're in the English one, the political science one, or the philosophy one. So like it might be every 2 years that one particular course gets offered.
I have another question. Could you clarify for me so you have the different areas, was it 5 different areas? You've got 5 core courses and then 5 different areas that the rest of the degree will be completed under. So they do 4 courses from one area, that's kind of like a concentration. And then the 5 courses from the other areas, do they have to do like 1 in each of the additional areas? So they could skip over some of those other areas entirely?
Actually, Jill may be able to better answer this than I have, because we've gone back and forth with the model for this. I mean, because we wanted to make it as flexible as possible, I don't think we prescribed that they have to take 1 course in each category.
We didn't.
Okay, great. And
we have choose 5 additional courses from any of the other 4 areas.
Yeah. And actually, even that wording, I think we may need to work on a little bit. I think we should take out other and just say any course area, so that if a student wants to do 7 courses in their core and 2 courses in other areas, that would be possible also. And then the idea is that the capstone would kind of help tie the whole thing together.
So I'm curious if in looking at the learning outcomes, it seems like it could be hard to meet some of those learning outcomes if you skipped over some of those areas altogether, right? Like, so like I'm primarily looking at I think it was like social structures and systems area, something like that. It seems like a person, a student could take the 5 core courses and then concentrate in one of the other areas and kind of never really like get very deeply into diversity in the workplace, and meet then that specific learning outcome that you're
Well,
wanting to have.
and Joe, I think you raised a really good point, because it gets back to this, breadth and depth. But what's going to happen is it's going to be very advisor heavy. And I think if somebody does that, the advisor is going to have to say, look, you're not meeting this one, learning objective. You're going to have to pick something from this category in order to do that, because the courses you've had thus far may not meet that outcome.
I mean,
Am I correct? Am I correct, Lisa? Or?
Well, I mean, I don't even think we have to make it that complicated. So, I mean, one of the challenges, and I mean, I know, Joe, that you know this, but one of the challenges of running an interdisciplinary program is that I have found, running global studies, it is pretty much impossible for me to assess the courses that are happening in other departments. So most of our learning outcomes, we're going to try to have met in the intro and the capstone course. But because we're going to have the gen ed diversity requirement, like for that one in particular, because we're going to have that campus gen ed requirement, and it's a campus requirement, we know that any student who comes here is going to end up getting that, even if it's not in a course that counts for their major. And we can do that, basically. Like, you can pull the courses from other places, even if they're not, like, it'll still meet the learning outcome, even though it's not like in an IPS course.
Please, Judy.
Okay, this is going to be more like a numbers question. Because I teach in such a technical field, this is a beautiful program. What's it going to do? Like, we have to always keep aware of our majors, our count of how many majors do we have. Can we suggest this as a dual major? If someone's transferring in so close to doing a full major and to do this, it might take them an extra semester. I know we like to try to keep everyone that push towards graduating in 4 years. But to benefit the student, can we keep our major count and suggest this direction? Because we do have those tech students that they're non-trads and they're transfers, and this would be such a benefit for their future. Or is this going to just pull from our majors? Did that make sense?
I think so. I think what I hear you asking is well, first of all, one of the first things that comes to my head is it's not just for our majors. The real intent of this is to try to recapture the stop out population, those who have started the college but never completed, and usually because they get a job or they have other demands that take them away from college. And so the idea is that the biggest share of the audience that would pursue this would be not students of our own. They would be new audience and new folks. But as we were designing this and as we consulted with a lot of people, it became clear that we shouldn't really limit it just to them either. Because as you're saying, what I think I hear you saying is that there may be other goals that our own students already have that might align with some of these skills. So,
Yeah.
I think that's part of the flexibility of the design, the intent there. Although I will say we haven't talked about anybody taking this on as a second major before. So maybe I'm not thinking of some reason why we wouldn't want to do that. But
Right.
does that help answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It does.
Are there any other questions? Any other points or things that you'd like to suggest or?
Can I ask another question?
Please.
So I was just sort of curious about, I think it's all a great idea, and I think gender and women's studies could play could contribute a lot, you know, especially on the diversity area, in the diversity area. But I'm wondering, you know, like we have a hard time staffing just our regular courses. I'm primarily thinking it's been a gender in the workplace course in the past, but we've talked some about kind of revamping it to just make it more about diversity in the workplace. And I feel like that course could fit in here so nicely, but we haven't been able to offer that course in several years because we just have such a hard time just staffing our intro courses and that kind of a thing. So I'm wondering like what kind of, and I think, yeah, Provost Furlong left. I was curious if he had input, but what kind of resources are thinking about being put into this program? And, you know, if that's something that, like, if we wanted to really contribute a lot, could we count? I hesitate a lot to try to, you know, commit too much because we can't currently, but in the future we might be able to if we had a little bit more support, more, mostly more faculty being able to help contribip.
The good news is that I can answer that. This has been part of our conversation is, you know, how would this be supported? It's not, you know, while we would launch it using unused seats in existing classes, that's the intent. And so there would only be 2 new courses that, you know, as people come to the degree that there would be demand and the need to support and fund additional components to it. So that is something that it would come out of extended learning in terms of, you know, course delivery, stipends and so on. And so he has been clear that this would be something we would kind of ease into as demand continues to grow in the degree program.
Yeah, and actually, Joe, I already put down WST 396 because it's a perfect fit. And that course was always full. I mean, I think it was like a 60-person course and it was cross-listed with management as well. I mean, that course was always full. It was, I think, world awareness and management, and it's been done as COIL. Like it's a really flexible course and it was really, really popular. Yeah, and it was taught online before. So it's, I think it's a really good fit.
And one more, if a course is offered online, are we thinking primarily asynchronous online courses to really accommodate the students, or?
Yes, that's the ideal.
Okay, thanks.
And I see in the chat, there's a question about getting a copy of the PowerPoint. I'm happy to share, but I see John's here, although he often splits his attention. John, will you be posting just the PowerPoint as well, or just the recording?
Generally, we only post the recordings. I did post it for your other session, but if you'd like to, I can post. If it's helpful to share the slides, I can do so.
Excellent. Well, I'll definitely send them to you then, John.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? If you have other thoughts, you know, after today's session and you get to talking about it with your colleagues or thinking about it, we'd love to hear whatever you come up with, because this is, you know, we're in uncharted waters a bit with this program development, and doing our best here to be as receptive to student need while keeping academic integrity in the design really, really forefront. So if you have suggestions or thoughts, things that we may or may not have thought of, we'd really appreciate hearing from you. But other than that, does anyone else on the group have any other parting comments?
Nope.
All right. Well, thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.